Okay, I'd like to call to order the May 18th, 2022 meeting of the Royal Oak Downtown Development Authority. Now would be the time for public comment. So if anybody wishes to address the board, now would be the time, Ms. Hope.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Frank Hobrecht, and I own a building at 408 South Washington. It used to be a Kresge building on South Washington. I've been here maybe 8 times, maybe 10, I don't know, because Detroit Edison tore up the alley behind our building, not to mention there's other issues. There was a potential $40,000, $50,000 synergy that could have been captured with Detroit Edison. But tomorrow, I understand they're going to patch that alley that's been a nightmare. And in fact, I brought some of the alley with me here. This is the alley. This is our pavement. It's dirt. I don't know if there's another dirt alley in downtown Royal Oak. If anybody knows of one, I'd like to see it. But we have a dirt alley. Not the whole alley, but the north leg of the alley. It's dirt. And every delivery that comes into Lily Seafood Grill has to go through dirt, mud. We have a sinkhole. I spoke with a city of engineering department guy just a few days ago. He goes, yeah, we know we have a sinkhole, we got a problem, but we're not going to do anything about it. There's a broken sewer, probably a storm sewer. But that $40,000, $50,000 synergy that could have been secured with Detroit Edison, it's going to go into a hole in the ground tomorrow. That's what I was told by Detroit Edison. They're just going to patch this alley. And this alley has more problems than just the patching. This alley is, when you walk out the door of our building, it's a 2-foot drop off, 2 feet straight down. Doesn't meet ADA, not even close. It's a long ramp, not to mention it's dirt. So I know that the DDA paved and improved 2 alleys last year east of Main Street. I don't know why we're being ignored. Today's budget, you're looking for maybe, $500,000 to $1 million for traffic control devices. Okay, that's nice. But collectively, the 4 or 5 people that are my neighbors, we pay about $750,000 in property taxes. And I know that the Fifth, which is the bulk of it, is the Fifth. There's 80 condos there. They pay a lot of money. But we're at $60,000 this year. My neighbor's about 120, 130. My other neighbor's going to be at 20, 30,000. It would seem like the DDA could step up and pave your alley, not the private parking lots, but just your alley. It's your land. It would be nice if you would step up. And it's unfortunate we're going to miss that opportunity with Detroit Edison tomorrow. But I'll be back next month and we'll give you an update.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no one else, I will close public comment and move on to the regular agenda. Item number 3, approval of the meeting minutes from April 20th, 2022.
I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Director Roswick,
Second.
second by Director London. Any questions, deletions, additions to the minutes? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes. Item number 4, expense items. These are your reports. If you have any questions for staff, now would be the time. I'm not seeing any. Okay. We will move on. Item number 5, Sights and Sound sponsorship request. Daniel.
As the memo included in your packet states, this was a sponsorship request that came to you at the April 20th meeting, which was then referred to committee, specifically the Consumer Marketing Committee, for consideration. At the meeting, there was a lot of question and conversation about why to support this event. One main part of the conversation was it's good to have more events downtown as it brings more people downtown. Additionally, the farmers market representative, Shelley and Christy, expressed that the whole purpose of doing this event is not to make money, but rather to benefit the community and businesses as a whole, which is why they have no issue setting up a separate booth that they can provide a volunteer to distribute coupons, menus, distribution of social district informational leaflets that myself can design, as well as just general announcements encouraging the use of the social district, which is a kind of a partnership considering they sit within the social district's footprint and can provide that additional media coverage there. And it appears that Christy and Shelley are also here from the farmers market if there's additional questions.
Okay. So, Director Roswick.
I'll make a motion to approve since I was the one who didn't approve it last time.
Okay, motion by Director Roswick, second by Director Yazbek. Does anybody have any questions for staff or for our guests? Director Yazbek.
And I think we discussed that if downtown businesses, restaurants, or retailers want to come and participate, that's free of charge for them. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we encourage that, actually.
Okay. So Director Rosbach has made the suggested resolution.
I'll second it.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's been seconded already.
Okay.
No problem.
I thought you were waiting for that.
No. I just want to make sure there's no more comments. Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes. Okay, you're all set?
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 6, Budget Amendments Infrastructure Committee recommendations. Tim, I'm going to let you lead us off on this one.
Okay. The board may recall that this item was in front of you at your April 20th meeting. The board referred it to the committee. The Infrastructure Committee did meet and provided a recommendation. I guess I'll go back a little bit on it. This is in regards to the traffic signals in the downtown area that are planned for installation of mast arm style traffic signals. The ones along 11 Mile Road at Main, Center, and Washington are actually installed. The ones on Main at 3rd, 4th, and Lincoln are in the process of being installed. Initially, the DDA had allocated, I believe it was about $1.2 million to fund those locations. And then the board was informed that the city was planning on doing it with road funds. Later on, the engineering department was informed that there wasn't sufficient left in the current fiscal year 21-22 to cover that, so the request has come back to the board to again budget for those items. You'll see that total indicated at $964,125. The Infrastructure Committee is recommending that the board fund that, and there is a resolution there if the board concurs with the committee. And I'll stop there before I go on to the next set of recommendations.
Director Riley.
Yeah, Tim, I'm looking through all this, and I'm, just say the least, a little confused. I went back and I looked through our budgets in the last 3 years, and in 2021 we had budgeted 583. 21-22 we had budgeted 653, which again I think we thought that the road funding was going to cover that. 22, 23, we don't have anything on the budget. And I'm wondering if you could, without going into too much detail, taking too much time, kind of walk us through where we're at. Because, you know, I'm looking at all the numbers here and the requests. And for example, 21, 22, you know, looking for 389 for 11 in Maine, 11 in Center, 11 in Washington. Those are already done. Another 575,000, Maine and Third, Maine and Fourth, Maine and Lincoln. As you said just now, those are being installed. So I guess my questions are, I mean, multiple. If we don't fund this, well then who paid, or how did we get the ones on 11 Mile done if we haven't, you know, if we're looking for funding from us, and if we don't agree with the ones on Maine and Third, Maine and Fourth, Maine and Lincoln, where is that funding going to come from? And like I looked at the schedule up there, and I think there was some CMAQ money involved, and then I added up the three on the right for the 11 Mile ones that are already done, and we're on the hook there. I think it was 583, but here it says 389. I'm totally confused. And then on top of it, we're going from $0 in the budget this year to looking for, I think it's 2.3 million, which I think is over the next 2 years. 1.6 this year and 675 next year. So I guess my question is, and obviously the new ones on Washington, there's no other funding coming from anybody else. So it's looking, those, if we go at it, we're on our own. Like, you know, the average cost for those come out to about 270,000 per masthead. And then the 6 prior ones come out to 160,000 per masthead. So can you kind of walk through the chronology of it?
You covered a lot. I'm not sure what the question was, but I can go back through and kind
How
of
did
walk
we get
through.
here is the question.
Okay. If you look at, probably the simplest way is to look at the chart that I have on the screen. You may recall back in 2019, roughly, there was discussion. The city was proceeding ahead with replacing traffic signals in the downtown area. Some of that was coming from what you refer to as QMAC funding, and I don't know what that acronym stands for. It's road funding from the state or the county, but I won't get into it. They were simply replacing traffic signals and putting in various types of safety equipment and crossing items under with that funding.
And that was only available because it was 11 Mile, is that correct?
Well, it's available in different years. You'll see it's allocated by 2019, 2020, and those are the road segments that the engineering department and the city were going to proceed in doing these in another year. The funding was coming from that particular year. Generally, with road projects, you design them and fund them ahead of time, and then they carry forward. So the DDA and the Infrastructure Committee looked at this was occurring, and the DDA asked to have the city put in the mast arm style lights. The DDA agreed to pay for the additional cost of the design, and you'll see that's highlighted in red. So you paid for the design services to have those put in rather than the standard traffic signal. You also agreed to fund the installation of those, and it was over a 2-year period, so you had agreed to 1 fiscal year and allocated budgeted money. I believe during the year the actual bids came back and you allocated the additional funds to cover what the actual bids when they came in. Then the subsequent year, the same thing, we had allocated money to cover the subsequent year, which is another fiscal year. So the board had agreed to fund the traffic signals on 11 Mile and the ones on Main Street. Those were the ones that you had money set aside and funded. And the city proceeded, engineering department proceeded to install those. During the budget process, the city engineer and myself were informed that there was sufficient road fund, there was enough road fund to cover it, and so the DDA did not need to provide those funds. At that time, you didn't reallocate any money, you just left it there. Since then, during the current year, you reallocated some of it to cover other infrastructure activities. You didn't reallocate all of it. There's probably $500,000 that's still left in the construction services fund that isn't allocated to anything. It originally was allocated to this project. I've indicated that you're allocating the whole amount to pull it back and say, okay, all of the money plus the additional needs to go to cover these traffic signals if you so chose to do so. Going forward into next fiscal year, which you've already approved, 22-23, starting in July, you originally didn't have any money allocated for traffic signal mast arms because, again, there was no request to provide that funding. There is now that request. Those segments of roadway you'll see on this chart, those intersections, were included in that original analysis. You just never were asked to fund those until the present time. What I will say is if those are not funded going into next fiscal year, they will not occur.
Which are those, Tim? I'm sorry.
Those would be the ones on Washington and the one on 4th. The ones on 4th. My understanding is engineering just won't do them, and they'll stay the way they are.
Okay. So
If you don't fund the ones they are, they're going to have to go back and try and find with finance and the city manager where they're going to cover those funds from.
So if what you're saying is that if we say no to the page 2, if you will, the 4th Street and the Washington ones, those won't happen. If we say no to the first page, those will happen, but the city will have to find the funding. Is that correct?
It's my understanding.
Okay. And then in terms of our budget, okay, I guess if I'm looking at 22-23, where after we throw in, there's a $440,000 line item for miscellaneous expenditures, which pretty much, takes us down to a zero balance, if you will, if we follow this. If we throw in for the mast arms, what goes out? There's like,
Well, under the 22-23 budget, in order to zero it out and show a net revenue of finance requires that I just balance it. So of your fund balance at the top, under revenue, you're only using $525,700 of your fund balance. If you fund these mast arms, you will use more of your fund balance.
okay, so it's
I have a question.
Director Lund.
I don't think it'll interrupt your flow. When you say it won't happen in 2022, 23, does it mean it could happen in 23, 24?
Well, you're asking me to get a crystal ball out. My reaction is it won't happen. Right now, the city has somebody under contract to proceed. They've had it bid. It's out. What they'd end up doing is canceling the contract, I
see what you're
believe.
saying.
And I don't, there wouldn't be any motivation on the city's end to proceed.
All right, that clarifies something else in my head. Thank you.
Tim, is there talking about those that might not happen, is there a real safety issue if we don't go to a mast arm versus what we have today? Or is it just fascia?
Well, a little bit of it is, I think, aesthetics and appearance, getting rid of the overhead lines versus, in terms of safety, I'm not a traffic engineer, but it's my understanding that the way they're installed, they're more visible because they're not in the middle of the intersection per se. You can see them better. So with that, I would say they're safer.
Thank you.
Okay, so I will say, from the committee's point of view, we looked at this, and when we had to bring back into the funding of all of these, we were in excess of $2 million, which we thought was maybe a little bit more than the DD could handle at this time. So we were looking at ways to scale that back. And these were the suggested ones that we did look at. Obviously, the first group is already constructed, so that obviously has to be the top priority. And then the idea of finishing off the rest of Main Street for the money allocated in the first round. Not to say there's going to be a second round, according to Mr. Twing and what the DDA's wishes are. But we felt that this would, in essence, be a better way to go. Now, obviously, we can eliminate it all, or we can do it all. So we have some options here. I think one of the other ideas that we had talked about was, originally in the budget, there was in excess of $1.2 million that we had allocated towards this. And we're actually talking about bringing this down to $964,000 by doing these projects, and maybe not doing the other locations located on the second page. I think that's why we have a couple different resolutions here that we have to deal with. Director Yesbeck.
So Tim stopped at this, first segment of them. Do we want to handle that separately? Then
It sounded to me like that's the way the executive director wanted us to handle this.
Well, that was the actual committee arrived at a resolute recommendation, was to do and provide funding for fiscal year 21-22, which is the current fiscal year, in the amount of $964,125. So that actually was the committee's recommendation to the full board. The second part of it we can get into, but this one was a recommendation.
So I'll make a motion to approve the proposed resolution to approve the $964,125 for the cited locations on 11 Mile Main Street.
Motion by Director Yasbeck.
I'll second.
Second by Director Rosbeck. Comments? Seeing none, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes. Mr. Twing?
Was that unanimous?
Yes, it was. Yes. Okay. Mr. Twing, you want the floor again?
Yep. I guess I'll continue. The second part of the discussion at the Infrastructure Committee regarding mast arms was for the other locations, intersections, and again, these have never been approved by the DDA board, other than they were included in the original chart as potential locations in future years. And that's 4th at Troy, 4th at Washington, 4th at Lafayette. so east-west across the downtown. The other two were Washington at 6th and Washington at Lincoln. As you'll see in the letter or memo to the board, engineering would ask the DDA to fund that over a 2-year period, which would include some funding from the current fiscal year 21-22 and some funding from fiscal year 22-23. And the committee did not arrive at a recommendation or a consensus regarding this particular request. It's my recommendation, if the board wants to have a consistent appearance in the downtown and address those issues, that you provide this funding, because it's my belief that if it's not provided, it's not going to occur.
Okay. Director Yazbek.
I read through the memo here and understood what how the committee felt about the additional funding and the comments about fund balance and consistency, and I think one of the reasons I supported the first one, I think on Main Street, our Main Street downtown, it should look consistent, and these signals are attractive, and that makes sense, especially in light of the fact that half of them are already up. So that's fine. However, going forward, these additional locations, some on 4th, some on Washington, I don't know that the consistency argument is as important to me. And the expenditure of $1.3 million approximately, it's a big amount, and maybe mastheads around the city is the best use of that $1.3 million. What I would suggest, in light of the comment that we have to address the fund balance, is that we take some time to assess what might be other priorities in the downtown, and send this task. I would send it back to the Consumer Marketing Committee and the Business Marketing Committee for some consideration of what might impact the downtown at this point, maybe more than the mastheads. Maybe we all agree ultimately that it is the mastheads, but the downtown needs some energy, needs something to reinvigorate it. I don't believe that we're at the levels we were pre-COVID, and 1.3 million is a very large fund to get creative with and try to help the downtown. So my opinion, we should take our time to evaluate what can be done with this money, and send it back to committee. We have some creative minds on this board, and let us think about what the possibilities are.
Director Lemon.
I'm pretty conflicted. I do think the mastheads offered an upscale look, and I think the added intersections are really important, especially since my business is on Washington. But it's just a nicer, cleaner appearance, and I do think it overall improve the look of the city. But I also think it's a lot of money, and there's a bigger, I don't know, I'm in the middle. I would love to see the parking. I'd love to see that money take away the Century parking system and replace it with more user-friendly parking, so we don't have to fight with customers every single day. So right now, I'm in the middle.
Thank you.
I see the need for it, but I also see it's a lot of money.
Anybody else want to chime in there? Director Riley.
Yeah, and I'll just echo what Director London said. And the other thing is that these, because there's no QMAC, CMAC, whatever, there's no additional funding coming from any other source. We're the only horse riding this show. The cost per mast arm is increased, and I'm sure part of that's because, a year or two later, and everything's increased. But we're not getting any additional help from anybody here. I agree with Director Yazbek as well that there's Things are a lot slower. Construction, which has got to be done, isn't going to help anybody. Just seems like one punch after the next. Parking, the black eye we're getting in the media and in the public, we're going to have to definitely dedicate, we're going to have to do something from our standpoint, whether it's quote unquote fix the problems or fix the narrative. It's going to require dollars from this board. And the other thing is, I think it's, we're going to have to find out what's left in the fund balance. This, in the March agenda, the development fund, we don't have the ending fund balance, which is probably because, the year is still active and we're not sure where we're at, but I think we need to get a handle on where we're at with that. And I'm not saying, I'm never in favor of kicking the can down the road, but on this one, I like Director London, and I'm conflicted as well. I mean, they are, you drive down 11 miles, they make a difference. Aesthetically, they make a difference. I was in Durham, North Carolina over the weekend, and you notice them and the streets that have them instead of the wires. The consistent look definitely adds to something. But I'm not advocating that we punt for 2 years and then costs go crazy, but maybe I think we should take a look at it and get everybody's opinion. I think you walk around the streets now, there's been some nicer weather and it doesn't seem like it was before, and it's a little concerning.
Director.
So I'm going to echo what Director Riley and Director London have said. I mean, I like uniformity. I think it does add to the aesthetic of the city, and it really, polishes the jewel that we call Royal Oak. But $1.3 million is a big chunk of change for me to swallow when I know I have other issues that I could probably put 1.3 million to good use too. So I think 1.3 million could be used to reverse course on Washington parking. I mean, I don't know if that's even possible, but I'm having a hard time thinking about mastheads when I agree with Director Riley that the crowds aren't what they were before COVID.
Okay, so, go ahead, Dr. London.
I just have one more question for Tim. So the other mastheads, they were not funded fully by the DDA. They were funded by the CMAQ, which is a part of the state of Michigan.
Well, CMAQ was portion of the funding for I believe it's for the safety elements of it. I believe where the other funding was coming from was there was a balance in the road fund under the millage that the city felt could cover the costs of the mast arms.
But that funding's not
about a year
available.
ago. And so rather than the DDA to continue using it or use DDA funds, I believe the city was intending to do that. The one thing I will also point out is that the DDA does capture those road funds in the downtown area. So you are getting road funds, just as you get other funds from, you capture funds from the other levying taxing jurisdictions. So I just point that out to everyone's on it. Based on what I'm hearing, my suggestion, I guess, would be that if you would, giving the timing on this, I don't know what committee you want to punt it to or what group of individuals have an interest, and maybe that would be a better way, is rather than sending it to a committee that exists, is who's ever interested, refer it to them. We can get the fund balance numbers together and give you an idea what the fund balance potentially would be at the end of July based on where we're at. Put some of those figures together and show you what you have as a fund balance and activities, if that gives you a comfort level. The other thing I do want to point out to the board, though, is you do not want to be sitting on a pile of money given the current TIF regulations and laws, is that unless you have a specific project that you're accumulating that for, the state treasury is going to be looking at why are you holding that money rather than giving it to taxing jurisdictions you're capturing it from. So the idea of sitting on a big fund balance is not a good idea. A little bit is all right, or if you're trying to accumulate for a project. So if you want to wait for another month, I think we can do that, and I, rather than going to business marketing or whatever, is if 3 or 4 of you want to get together and go over budget numbers, we can do that, come back with a handle on where you want to go.
Yeah, the fund, I totally agree with sitting on the fund balance. And, we wrestled with that issue before with 696 in Maine. And, I guess, in hindsight, thank God we had some of it sitting there for the COVID relief plans. Because you never know what happens, it's going to happen around the corner. And, we've talked a lot. In fact, we spent some money on a design for the whole alley program, because we're, making the idea of the alley going all the way from 11 Mile down to 6th and whatever. And I think, that's something we can definitely look at. So.
When I drive down Main Street from 696, like you notice our work with the things in the middle, what they call them, not the medians, but they call the median, the flowers. I mean, we've made a huge project on Main Street. So I would hate to ignore Washington right now, but it's the amount of money. It'd be nice if the city met us somewhere in the middle to help fund this going forward.
Okay, good point. Okay, a lot of good points here. I saw your hand first.
Yeah, just to be clear, I think they're beautiful. They're very attractive. But in my mind, we have to concern ourselves with how to bring people to the city. We just paid, I don't know, DDA paid $5-6 million for this park. Maybe we use some of the money to program events at the park. That'll bring people downtown. That'll support businesses. I'm not saying the mastheads aren't nice, but I'm not sure they have the type of gravity that will bring people downtown and spend money. So to me, I'd like to make a motion, and I would like to make it to refer this back to the Business Marketing Committee and Consumer Marketing Committee, because it seems like everybody's kind of interested in this issue from what I heard up here. And if people don't want to show up, then maybe we can consolidate. But I would make the motion to refer it back to both committees so everybody can have a voice. This is a big issue, a lot of money, and I think everybody's opinion should be heard. So I make that motion.
Okay.
You're talking about split committee.
I got to deal with the motion first. And then we'll get to
I
you.
was going to second, but
Okay.
didn't he already make that motion? I
No,
thought
he
did.
just
Oh, okay. So I'll
recommended
second.
that would happen, but we're doing it in the form of a motion now to have it on the record.
Can I?
So I have a motion by Director Yazbek,
I will second.
second by Director Rosbeck.
And I have a comment. Can we?
Okay, yep, now will be the time.
Could, Tony, do we want to amend to make it a special committee? Not a business marketing or consumer marketing, but a special committee.
Well, I think we can only have 4, so if more than 4, if we all are interested in the issue,
Oh, you're absolutely
then we would
right.
have to meet separately. If anybody's not interested, they don't have to participate, but I think we all have some opinions, and I think this is a big enough issue where we should have everybody's input.
Agreed.
Okay, so we're the motion is to refer this back to 2 committees.
I have a question.
Yes, Director London.
My problem with 2 committees is they then don't get together to discuss.
Can I suggest you just schedule a work session, and I'll just post it, and it'll be a work session, and under that you just can't make any motion or take any action, and we'll post it as a public meeting, and whoever shows up, and you can participate in the discussion, and we'll go forward.
I like that idea. That we're in the same room together.
So I appreciate that. Would you like to amend?
That's
So
fine.
we want to change the motion then, Tim?
Yeah, if you, and I would ask that you kind of look at your calendars and pick a date. I don't want to do that by survey. Is there a date that would work for everyone in the next? prior to the next DDA meeting.
Well, we want to try to avoid
The week of June
around the
6th.
Memorial period, so.
I would say the week of June 6th would look good on my calendar.
The next DDA is the 15th, right?
Can we do the 8th, June 8th?
That would be a week ahead.
What day of the week is that?
It's a
Wednesday, it's a week.
I was thinking the Wednesday
Same,
after
keep it.
Memorial Day,
The
or,
1st, that would be fine.
I can make 8th, but the 1st I'm having surgery.
okay, the 8th then?
June 8th at 4 or a different time?
4th?
4.
Okay. June 8th at 4. I'll notice it and get you where. It probably won't be in here. It'll be in one of the conference rooms.
Okay.
So you've changed the motion to do that. We need a vote.
Okay, so that's now a part of the motion, which has been seconded.
I've seconded.
Any comments? None. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes. Okay, there's two other parts to this.
Yes, the first one is in regards to some information I received again from engineering DPS in regards to a problem along South Main. and it's been somewhat out there, but it's been discovered what the problem is as part of the South Main project. The work is not included in the resurfacing project. What they found is that the conduit and wiring along a segment of South Main from 11 Mile to 3rd, I believe, on the west side needs replacing and repaired, the conduit and the wiring. They did get a quote from the electrical contract that was $53,000 to do that work. I've provided a resolution if the board wanted to consider providing that funding in your fiscal year 22-23, which is next fiscal year, to take care of that. And this is in regards to the decorative lights that are downtown and the power to those.
Any questions for Mr. Twing? If anybody's interested, there is a suggested resolution.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Director Rosbeck. Second by Director Legasso. Comments, questions? None? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes. And the last part of this,
The last part of this is in regards to one of the items that's related to the alley improvements that occurred from 11 Mile to 5th Street roughly. We've been getting all of the refuse containers and trash out of those alleys. They reappear. The one location where the business predated the ordinances and site plan approvals in the downtown is the WROK on 3rd. Their refuge container kind of floats around. So in a effort to be consistent with the master plan the DDA approved for alley improvements, you should see the plan that's in the packet to place that refuge container in the city parking lot adjacent to south of the WROK. The plan is depicted in there. It basically would be a concrete pad with fencing around it, enclosure, so that the refuge container and any grease bins and recyclable containers could be installed there. In discussions with the owners, Their only concern, obviously, was how much it was going to cost. The committee discussed it, and I think they were willing to cover the cost of the concrete pad, provided the business paid for the enclosure, the fencing around that enclosure. Before we proceed further with this, I wanted to get an indication from the board whether you concurred with the committee's recommendation. If you do, then we would move this forward to the city commission to actually approve a license agreement, because it is city property, to do the installation. So the action really is, does the DDA want to provide the estimated $8,000 for the concrete pad? And again, there's a resolution there if the board concurs.
Director Riley.
Yeah, I move to approve.
I
Mo-
second.
Motion by Director Riley, second by Director Rosbeck. Yeah, this was, the committee just felt like this was the best solution for that garbage area, because it does sit on city property, and it has been forever and ever and ever before the ordinances were even adopted at that time. So that was our recommendation. Any other questions? Okay, if not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? And that motion passes. Item number 7, committee structure, members, and meeting dates and times.
I only added this to the agenda. I know that there's been a lot of discussion about committee makeup, roles of the committees. Whether you want to discuss that today or do something different with it, I'll leave to you. I did not draft anything particular. I did include a copy of the rules and regulations that govern the board and identify the committees. In case you wanted to make revisions, then you could vote on those revisions. I know at the time we did the organizational meeting and elected officers, chair and vice chair, there was some discussion of who was going to serve on which committees, and whether you wanted to have standing committees or whether you wanted to eliminate standing committees and just appoint committees as needed on a project-by-project basis. So I only put this back on here today because no action has been taken in regards to it since the organizational meeting, and you have almost a full board. We have one vacancy, but so I guess I'll leave it up to the board whether I didn't write anything. I don't have any recommendation. I just didn't want to lose sight of the fact it's been an item under discussion.
Okay, Director Yazbek.
I know that if we are going to keep the meetings, I think we should assign a standing date for the committees to meet. So I feel very bad when Tim has to, decipher everybody's responses.
I second that.
So
Okay.
I know for Consumer Marketing Committee, maybe we can take that one first. When's the most convenient for you guys to meet? And then if there's no business, we cancel. What's
Well, we used to meet the first Monday of every month. I think that worked for me. Or just any Monday of every month would work for me.
the first Monday of every month?
Or the second Monday, just make it consistent.
Jennifer?
Mondays are good, but I know that some of our committee members have trouble with Mondays.
But when we
so-
switched it to whatever, that person we're talking about rarely comes to we switched to Tuesdays for that person, doesn't come to the meetings anymore.
Okay. I have
The
no
attendance
problem.
is the same.
I'm fine with Mondays, so the
First
first Monday,
Monday?
first Monday of the month?
Still at 5?
Yes.
That's fine.
Okay.
Did you have anything else,
I
Director Yazbek?
did, because I actually like the idea of special committees or disbanding committees to get better perspective. I do feel like we do not share enough ideas across committees in our current structure. and I would like to see it shaken up.
Are you suggesting to eliminate the current committees and have special committees for particular issues? I guess I'm asking what,
Yeah, I
what
guess,
the
I
thought
guess
process is.
my thought process is, I don't think we have clear delineation of our committees as they stand today. Maybe infrastructure does, but I feel like business marketing and consumer marketing tend to overlap each other, which is par for the course. But maybe we don't need both of those committees. And I get that we can't have more than 4 board members in a meeting, and then otherwise we'd have to publish the meeting, I guess. So I'm just stating, I think that we all have very good ideas. I don't think that we all get to work together with each other all the time. So
I guess my only concern would be in the history that I've been involved in, to combine those 2 committees into one committee would be a lot of work for that committee.
for which committee?
Well, if you were to combine consumer marketing and business marketing, that would be a lot of agenda items for one committee.
Got it.
That would be my concern. Now, what we could do is, if everybody wanted to do that, I mean, we could combine that committee, but also then have special formation committees on top of that, so that when we get possibly some
Bigger
big issues that need to be dealt with, that will take considerable amount of time to work on, the sale of property, the purchase of property, certain things like that, and form special committees for those items at the discretion of the chair and the executive director. I guess I could agree to that. Or I would be in favor of just leaving it the way that it is. Also, so I'm up for suggestion here if we wanted to make any changes. Director Riley.
Here's a possibility, and I hate to make everything, and I do agree with Director Rosbeck that the business marketing and consumer marketing, obviously there's always going to be overlap because they both have marketing in their name. And
Right.
I mean, literally. What if we did something like this? So you have the infrastructure committee, which does a great job. You have the consumer marketing committee, which handles, the stuff, I hate to say that they've always handled, but, the things that have always gone there. There's stuff that floats in the committee. Then you have a quote-unquote a business development committee
Yeah.
that maybe handles like the new projects or stuff like that. And then there's certain things, if anything falls in the middle, then you discuss, well, maybe because there is some things that's business development that falls into marketing, maybe,
Right.
and maybe in those cases, we draft,
You overlap them.
a 2 and a 2, you merge the committees, but not with 8 sitting there, but you take 2
No,
from
I
one
gotcha.
and 2 from the other. So I do agree with Director Rosbeck that it would help to have, like I think, I'm sure you guys would like to be in a business marketing committee once in a while, and I think we'd like to be in a consumer marketing committee once in a while. Well, Tony is.
Right.
He's jack of all trades. But I think it would improve the cohesion of the board in general. I mean, but
Okay. I'm in
the
favor of
The
that.
idea of drafting a committee for each project in its essence sounds awesome, because you can play to the strengths of the board members for that particular project. A little cumbersome, I think. to
I
take
agree.
it- take
I'm
it
not,
on every
I'm
one.
not disagreeing with that.
Maybe a handful of them, would we do that?
Again, my only concern is I like what you're saying, and I would be on board with that. My concern was to inundate, I did not want to inundate consumer marketing because consumer marketing deals with a lot of marketing, contracts, promotions for all of our advertising partners, all of that. Then they also have to deal with sponsorship requests, and there's a lot of that also. And I just didn't want to overburden them by throwing everything into one basket. If we're flexible enough that we can take certain things out and bigger projects and put them into special committees, I can totally be on board with that. Director, yes.
I'm just, looking at the ordinance, and if there is something else that governs us, I don't know, but it says the authority shall have 4 standing committees, and it lists the committees. So it's not a maybe, that's a shall have 4 standing committees. I don't know. Do we have the authority not to have the
These are
committees?
your bylaws. I guess a little history
We
on
just
this.
have to vote it.
There's no requirement to have committees. Where the committees came out of originally was when the DDA joined the National Main Street program many years ago. Part of the Main Street program was to have 4 committees. Back then they were called promotions and design, and I forget the other 2 are right now. But then I think in the last amendment, which I don't know, it's been many years to these, the board decided to rename them to infrastructure, consumer marketing, business marketing, and technology. These are your rules and regulations. It does take 2/3 of you to amend them and change them. So you can change these. You can decide that you don't want any standing committees and you'll assign them on a project by project basis. Or you can only have 3. Or you can call them infrastructure, consumer marketing, and business development. Technology hasn't met since we did a website, so I don't know that that's necessary. But no, Tony, these are your rules for you to. You do have to have a set of rules and regs, but bylaws. But you can amend these.
I was going to say, I do like what Director Riley has kind of outlined. I think that business development is a necessary committee name. It's a nice name. It doesn't mean that it doesn't involve marketing of business, but it really does focus the energies of that committee to be gaining more, working with the Todd Fentons of the world and getting more action into our downtown, hopefully.
Okay. Director Riley.
Yeah, I just thought of something there. When Director Esbitt mentioned the 4 committees, and currently we have 3. Do we have a technology committee?
We do not.
Okay. So one of the things...
You're the chairperson.
Yeah, I have meetings, those meetings are quick. One of the things that seems to be happening more and more, which is, in my opinion, is a good thing, is we seem to be having more and more events. Events also seem to be the place where we get a cross-pollination a lot of times with business marketing and consumer marketing, whether it's we're bringing in downtown dollars or we're trying to promote this and do that. But, there needs to be advertising, but then there's the effect on the community. Maybe we establish an events committee. Which is maybe a combination of, whoever else on the board, but obviously I would think some people from the Consumer Marketing Committee would be on that, obviously. And then whether it's infrastructure, business marketing, or whatever. There seems to be...
As a 4th committee.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, just thinking
Instead of business marketing?
No. He's saying on top of.
No, it wasn't on business marketing,
Who are
it
you
was
getting rid of?
consumer.
Technology?
technology.
So how about, okay, if you want to abandon your committee.
Well, from what I'm hearing, you still want to have standing committees. I guess the discussion is the name of those committees, and I've heard 2 changes. And perhaps what we should do between Daniel and myself is we will take a crack at modifying Section 6 of the bylaws based on what I'm hearing today. And we may add standing meeting days and times, and as well as a brief description of what each committee will handle, or their purview is, and we'll bring that back to you in June for your editing and adoption, if that's acceptable.
Sounds excellent.
Okay.
I agree that that's the way to go. I would be nervous about not having standing committees because it would take a lot of time to, every single time that we have an issue, to go through the process of forming a committee and finding out who's available, who's interested, who's not interested. I don't mind doing that on a special basis, but to do it all the time would be too much. So let's do that. Let's see what they bring back, and we'll take a look at it. If we like it, we'll approve it. If we need to amend it, we can amend it, then approve it.
Okay.
Good with that? Okay. Okay, that brings us to the end of the agenda. There's a few reports here. Anything, Tim, that you want to bring to our attention on the reports?
No, just your information, unless you have questions.
Okay. Any questions?
Well, I do have a question.
Sure.
I know the, where was it? The Pride Festival, was that approved by City Commission?
Mm-hmm.
The Pride
It
Festival?
was the
Okay.
last meeting.
That's it.
No
make
other
a
questions?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Director Rossmick,
Second?
second by Director London. Anything else for the board? If not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes, and we are adjourned.